Hello everyone, welcome back to our channel KN Academy, and today we have Sajal and he got selected in Swiggy as an analyst intern. So we are going to discuss about his interview experience, like how he cracked Swiggy as an intern, and we are going to cover full interview experience. Hi Sajal, welcome to our channel.
Hi, Maglam. Thank you so much for having me. It's good having
Yeah,
being here.
इट्स अ ग्रेट प्लेजर सो वी कैन स्टार्ट योर इंटरव्यू एक्सपीरियंस कि आपने कैसे प्रिपेयर किया था एंड आपने ऑफ कैंपस से अप्लाई किया था एंड ऑन कैंप कैसे आपने अप्लाई किया था एंड क्या आपका शॉर्ट लिस्टिंग था एंड वन बाय वन हम पूरा प्रोसेस के बारे में डिस्कस करने वाले हैं कि स्विगी का एक्चुअली इंटरव्यू का क्या प्रोसेस होता है सो यू कैन स्टार्ट
Right. Right. So, सबसे पहले तो it was an on-campus opportunity that I had received. Swiggy came in around that announcement was released by June or something, right? Mid-June or something like that. The actual placement season starts by August in our college, right? हर college में अपना अपना होता है कुछ. The OA was scheduled for around the last week of July or somewhere around like that. उसके बाद the results came after 10 days or something, like by 10th 11th 12th August, something like that, in the first or second week of August.
ओके ओके
उसके बाद the HR in the okay, so the thing happened कि स्विगी ने जो पहला लिस्ट निकाला ना, the very first list that we received on our by through our TNP, उसमें my name was not there, right? So initially I thought if my name is not on there on the resume shortlisting candidates, so I am not selected for the further rounds and all of that. तो
ओके ओके
ठीक है, चलो ये कंपनी हो गई, अभी we'll move forward to the next one.
ओके
Then सबके interviews हो गए, and then the final list of the candidates who were selected for this role also was released,
ओके
right?
ओके
तो we thought कि स्विगी का जो भी मतलब प्रोसेस था that is over now. तो अब स्विगी में तो कुछ भी नहीं होने वाला है. Now what happened was कि after some time, like around I would say 10, 12th September or something like that. That was like around 15, 20 days after they had released their list, right?
ओके सो
I
सेकंड लिस्ट लाइक ओके अगेन सेकंड लिस्ट दे हैव
no,
रिलीज्ड
no, no.
ओके
They did not release any other list.
ओके ओके या
There was nothing from our TNP now. I am
ओके
also a
ओके
part of TNP, so now
हाँ
I know some sort of internals कि किस कंपनी का क्या चल रहा है, right?
ओके
So मतलब I am in the head मतलब core members of TNP, right?
यस यस
तो आई ऑल्सो न्यू कि अभी स्विगी का कुछ भी नहीं होने वाला है, स्विगी का सब प्रोसेस खत्म हो गया है, ठीक है. अभी हुआ ये कि स्विगी की जो पीओसी थी फ्रॉम दी स्विगीज एंड, दे लाइक शी कॉल्ड मी कि सजल, आई एम ईशा जैन स्पीकिंग ऑन बिहाफ ऑफ स्विगी एंड ऑल ऑफ दैट. तो आई एम रीचिंग आउट टू यू फॉर शेड्यूलिंग योर इंटरव्यू बिकॉज यू हैड अप्लाइड फॉर दिस एंड दिस रोल थ्रू ऑन कैंपस अपॉर्चुनिटी.
ओके
आई वाज लाइक मतलब आई वाज ऑब्वियसली लाइक शॉक्ड कि ये कैसे हो गया, ये तो खत्म हो चुका था.
यस
And then मतलब ठीक है, we scheduled the interview and all of that, and फिर the interviews happened, but उस point तक नहीं पता था कि ऐसा कुछ होने वाला है, right?
यस यस
अब ये हुआ कि उन्होंने ना हर स्टूडेंट को अपने आप से कॉल करना शुरू कर दिया, like even after they had released the
ओके यस
final
यस
shot. तो and RPOC also did not had told us कि ऐसा कुछ होने वाला है. तो ये हुआ, then I was like so shocked, and because there was this thing कि I wanted to go to Swiggy, especially because it has a brand value, right? Swiggy was one of those companies जिनमें I really wanted to go in.
ओके
Because there were so many companies जो हमारे college में आई थी and I had missed on them. For example, Meesho was there, there was BlackRock, there was Gamescraft. Like these were some big names,
सो
राइट, जो
आपने
इनिशियली आई.
उसमें अप्लाई किया था ओनली स्विगी में अप्लाई किया था
नहीं, नहीं, मैंने अप्लाई सब में किया था,
हाँ
राइट, बट देन हुआ ये था कि गेम्सक्राफ्ट में आई वाज़ नॉट शॉर्टलिस्टेड,
ओके
ब्लैक रॉक में आई वाज़ नॉट शॉर्टलिस्टेड, मीशो में मेरा ओए क्लियर नहीं हुआ था, राइट. अभी स्विगी में भी ऐसा कुछ फर्स्ट इनिशियली फर्स्ट लिस्ट में मेरा नाम नहीं आया, तो आई वाज़ लाइक कि शायद ये भी आ गया.
ओके
बट देन व्हेन दे कॉल्ड मी, सो आई वाज़ वेरी ग्लैड कि दिस इज समथिंग दैट आई माइट हैव अपॉर्चुनिटी इन. तो इंटरव्यू हुआ. अब ना इंटरव्यू में ये हुआ कि द थिंग हैपेंड, यू नो
सो सजल बेसिकली यू अप्लाइड इन स्विगी एंड आपको यहाँ पे शॉर्ट लिस्टिंग हुआ था तो शॉर्ट लिस्टिंग के बाद डायरेक्टली आपका इंटरव्यू हुआ था या फिर कोई ऑनलाइन असेसमेंट वगैरह आपका हुआ था स्विगी में
नहीं, नहीं, तो शॉर्टलिस्टिंग के बाद व्हाट दे हैड डन इज, जो उन्होंने पहली लिस्ट निकाली, सबसे पहली लिस्ट जो उन्होंने निकाली थी,
यस
उसमें था ओए, राइट.
ओके
तो वो कैंडिडेट्स थे ओए के लिए फॉर ऑनलाइन असेसमेंट, राइट, उसमें
ओके
मेरा नाम था. अभी
ओके
हुआ ये कि आफ्टर दैट आई गेव द ऑनलाइन असेसमेंट विद ऑल ऑफ माय फ्रेंड्स, जितना भी था, उसमें से जो नाम आया आफ्टर द ऑनलाइन assessment, उसमें मेरा नाम नहीं था उस लिस्ट में, सो
ओके,
मेरा इंटरव्यू हुआ ही नहीं उस टाइम।
सो बेसिकली ऑनलाइन असेसमेंट जो आपका हुआ था, तो ऑनलाइन असेसमेंट का एक्चुअली जो आपका फर्स्ट राउंड था स्विगी में, फर्स्ट राउंड आपका ऑनलाइन असेसमेंट हुआ था, उसके बाद उसमें जो
ऑनलाइन
आपका
असेसमेंट था टेक्निकल।
पैटर्न था वो क्या पैटर्न था, लाइक व्हाट दे आस्क, लाइक व्हाट टाइप ऑफ क्वेश्चंस दे आस्क्ड इन ऑनलाइन असेसमेंट?
तो स्विगी के ऑनलाइन, बिकॉज द रोल दैट वाज मेंशन्ड वाज
हम्म।
डेटा
यस
एनालिटिक्स, राइट?
यस।
अभी इसमें द क्वेश्चंस देयर वर अराउंड 25 questions or something like that, और
हम्म
उसके लिए we were given 30 minutes or something,
हम्म
so more or less 1 minute per question. ऐसा कुछ वो नहीं था कि you cannot come back to the question or
हम्म।
something like that. You can scroll through the questions. Now the type of questions were there, it was more like a CAT का syllabus, जैसा भी आपका
ओके,
CAT में syllabus
लाइक
होता
इट
है,
वाज
right?
लाइक
There were,
एप्टीट्यूड बेस्ड क्वेश्चंस लाइक?
yeah.
ओके।
So there were aptitude questions, there were maths questions, and there were English questions as well, right?
हम्म।
So 10 या 15, I think aptitude के questions थे.
ओके।
5 questions were there from math and 5 questions were there from English. So it was
इंग्लिश,
like
ओके।
like that 25 or 30
इट
questions
वाज
थे,
ए
because it's
नॉर्मल
been a very,
एप्टीट्यूड, राइट? इट वाज नॉट, एंड कभी कभी क्या होता है कंपनीज में वो टेक्निकल एमसीक्यू भी ऐड कर देते हैं, राइट? सो इट वाज टोटल जनरल एप्टीट्यूड, लाइक बेसिकली
it
मैथ्स
was
एंड
very general.
लॉजिकल एंड इंग्लिश ओनली?
हाँ, उसमें
ओके।
ऐसे टेक्निकल कुछ भी नहीं था।
ओके।
उसके बाद आई मीन यहाँ पैटर्न तो यही था, इट वाज
हम्म
कंप्लीटली, और ऐसे क्वेश्चंस का अगर मैं डिफिकल्टी लेवल भी बोलूँ तो
हम्म
आई डोंट थिंक दे वर वेरी डिफिकल्ट, इफ यू वर टू प्रिपेयर फॉर दिस
हम्म
सॉर्ट ऑफ एन ओए, आई वुड सजेस्ट कि सिर्फ और सिर्फ कैट के जो आपके टॉपिक्स होते हैं,
हम्म।
जस्ट गो थ्रू देम वन बाय वन, और जस्ट हैव अ नॉलेज ऑफ वन ऑफ दोस टॉपिक्स, ठीक है?
ओके।
हर क्वेश्चन का एक एक आप पैटर्न अगर देख लोगे कि okay, this is the type of questions, this is how you solve this type of question,
यस।
so I think you would be good in solving them, because it does not require very high technical knowledge for solving such questions, so that would be easy for you to go through the OA, मतलब बहुत आराम से निकल जाएगा उस केस में।
Okay, so
Yeah.
basically, and there was no coding question also, because Swiggy generally product-based company, was product-based company अपने all an assessment में, like Swiggy also, like if they hire for SD also ना, then they put like coding questions, but for analyst
हाँ,
I think they are not putting, right? Only aptitude.
yeah, they did not post.
Okay.
They did not put any, because I also think it is
Hmm.
only because it was an analyst role. So
Yes.
maybe they did not put such questions because of that.
Hmm.
Otherwise, एक मतलब मैं अपने सीनियर से बात कर रहा था बिफोर द स्विगी ओए,
Hmm.
सो दे हैड सेड कि एसडी रोल के लिए he had applied and he had to go through 2 coding questions as well. But
Yes.
then
Yes.
since it was not a SDE role, I think that's why they did not put any
Okay.
something sort of
Okay.
like that.
It was like basic aptitude test. Okay, so like
Yeah, it
you
was
have
very,
given the aptitude test. After that, the list was released, right? Then the story
yeah,
you were
after that
telling. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, so after the list was released, my name was not there.
Hmm.
Abhi uske baad, when the HR had, they had started to, reach out to many candidates. It was not only me. There were like 5 more candidates apart from me, who she had reached out to. So, our interview was scheduled, and
Hmm.
then on 3rd or 4th of September, I gave my first interview for Swiggy.
Okay.
So this round was completely about, the initially, like, the interviewer introduced himself, and then asked me to introduce myself and all that, and then he initially asked me a few questions about my resume, right?
Okay.
He asked me about my project that I had done. Now, okay, so one thing about my resume is that I've done a lot of internships, right,
Okay.
from my first year. I mean, I have been doing app development since then, so I was very good with that. One thing he asked me, ki you have a very good portfolio with a development profile,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So why are you applying for analyst in that
Yes.
case, right?
Yes.
So I told him, because at that point I was not very much looking into the role, right? Because at that point I did not have any offer, right? Us point pe. So I was looking more into an offer, despite of the role. I was not looking much into the role. कि नहीं SD ही चाहिए या तो फिर analyst ही चाहिए. So बस I was more focused into one of these two roles only. I was like कि नहीं इसके अलावा और कुछ नहीं चाहिए. One of these two
Yes.
would work
Yes.
for me. So I went with that, and फिर उसके बाद he had asked me one puzzle question. एक puzzle problem है that is called the camel banana problem. Students would be able to find it on GFG. It's like a pretty easy problem. So वो भी मैंने prepare किया हुआ था पहले से. उसके बाद he said okay ठीक है अभी हो गया. उसके बाद he did not have any, it went for like what 40 good minutes or something like that. उसके बाद uh, I had called the HR back ki my interview is done now, what is the further process and all of that. She said ki there's going to be one more round for you.
Okay.
ठीक है?
That is HR
अभी
round, right?
thing is, नहीं, so I also thought that only,
Okay.
but यहाँ पे हुआ क्या कि जब भी मेरे फ्रेंड्स का इंटरव्यू हुआ था, राइट, जब भी वो ऑन कैंपस आए हुए थे, जब अगस्त में सबके इंटरव्यूज हुए थे, सबका एक ही राउंड हुआ था, ठीक है। तो आई वाज आल्सो एक्सपेक्टिंग कि मेरा भी एक ही राउंड होगा, लाइक ऑब्वियसली, है ना। तो किसी का भी दो राउंड नहीं हुआ, दैट वाज वन थिंग। आई वाज आल्सो एक्सपेक्टिंग कि मेरा भी एक ही होगा, बट देन एचआर सेड कि आपका एक राउंड और है। नाउ द लिंक फॉर द सेकंड राउंड केम,
ओके।
अभी वो हुआ एक हफ्ते बाद कभी। आई
हम्म।
गेव दैट, आफ्टर दैट आई गॉट द रिजेक्शन लिंक, मतलब
ओके।
रिजेक्शन ईमेल कि यू
रिजेक्शन
आर
ईमेल।
नॉट सिलेक्टेड।
ओके, सो
हाँ,
बेसिकली स्विगी में जो आपका सेकंड राउंड था असेसमेंट, सो दे हैव नॉट आस्क एनी टेक्निकल क्वेश्चन रिलेटेड टू डेटा और समथिंग, ओनली रिज्यूमे बेस्ड
नहीं, सो
क्वेश्चन दिया?
दिस इज वेयर मतलब द प्रॉब्लम कम्स इन। जब भी
ओके।
वो सेकंड राउंड आया ना,
हाँ हाँ।
बिकॉज आई हैड अप्लाइड फॉर डेटा एनालिस्ट, राइट, आई
यस।
डिड नॉट नो कि द इंटरव्यू जो हो रहा है मेरा, वो डेटा एनालिस्ट रोल के लिए था ही नहीं।
ओके।
दैट वाज
ओके।
फॉर बैक एंड इंजीनियर।
ओके, सो
ठीक है।
बट दे हैव मेंशन द एनालिस्ट, राइट?
Exactly.
ओके।
So they had mentioned analyst and all of
यस।
that, but जो interviewer थे, even you
हम्म।
check the the panel is given there in the email
हाँ,
itself, right?
यस
कि who is
यस
going to take the interview. So
यस
I had checked this profile on LinkedIn,
यस
and
यस।
then he was the engineering manager in Swiggy. Then I was like,
ओके।
एक analytics के लिए engineering manager interview क्यों ले रहा है? But
यस यस।
I still went for it, right? I prepared my stuff and then still went for it. Then I called the HR back in कि
ओके।
मैम, ये जो मेरा इंटरव्यू था, I had applied for analyst role, and then मेरा इंटरव्यू हुआ है बैकएंड में, सो आई मीन मे बी देयर इज अ
यस
मिसकम्युनिकेशन और
यस,
समथिंग,
मिसकम्युनिकेशन, या।
राइट। एंड देन शी सेड कि ठीक है, इट वाज माय मिस्टेक, तो मे बी वी कैन शेड्यूल योर इंटरव्यू अगेन। एंड देन शी गेव मी अ प्रेफरेंस कि किस में आपको इंटरव्यू करना है, बैकएंड में या एनालिस्ट में, तो आई चोज एनालिस्ट। तो ओके, आई विल टेल यू फर्स्ट जो मेरा सेकंड राउंड हुआ था, बिकॉज दैट वाज मोर फोकस्ड टुवर्ड बैकएंड, सो
ओके।
उसमें यू विल आल्सो गेट द बैकएंड का इंटरव्यू
हम्म
एक्सपीरियंस, राइट। अब उसमें initially how it starts, right, they asked me about my introduction, and then he started grinding me कि उन्होंने he asked me about my resume, and then he asked me about my introduction and all that. उसके बाद ही स्टार्टेड लुकिंग इनटू माय रिज्यूमे, राइट।
हम्म।
सो इनिशियली जो भी उन्होंने टेक्निकल क्वेश्चंस पूछे, दोज वर फ्रॉम माय रिज्यूमे। नाउ ऑन माय
ओके।
रिज्यूमे आई हैव मेंशन्ड अ लॉट ऑफ ऐप डेवलपमेंट।
हम्म
I had also mentioned one project of mine that was being used in the NIT Delhi, right? So it's like that project is something similar to MyGate application. Now he asked me completely about, he asked me to explain that project. I was explaining that project. He asked me कि okay Sajal, let's do one thing. You design this, you design a database schema for this project. So he also asked me, a few differences between
हम्म
what is the difference between MySQL and MongoDB.
यस।
What is the difference between SQL and NoSQL? And then again, he had asked me कि why would you not prefer to use MongoDB in that project, because उसमें I had used Firebase,
ओके
right?
ओके। यस।
So why Firebase, why not MongoDB, because structure दोनों का same होता है,
हाँ, यस।
right? And then he said कि again he was he was grinding me very much towards the database end कि
डेटाबेस
why
इज
have you
आल्सो।
used
यस
Firebase,
यस,
yes,
बिकॉज इट
because
वाज
I have used
बैकएंड ओनली।
Firebase.
यस।
Yeah. That time, that is when got to know कि it is for backend engineer.
बैकएंड
The interview
इंजीनियर।
is for backend engineer, because I was only prepared for analyst sort of a thing, right?
ओके।
And then
यस।
my resume was also, you know, उसमें I had put more projects of analyst, and then only that one project was there for software developer, right?
ओके।
So that is very hate कि your resume is completely analyst,
हाँ।
and why are you applying for backend role?
यस यस।
Then I was like, I have not applied for backend role, I have
ओके।
applied for analyst role. So yeah, उसके बाद after these questions, he came to the database schema designing part. First, he asked me to design the schema for that project. After that, when he thought कि I'm pretty confident for designing this schema for this project, he asked me कि okay, let's suppose that we want to design one cricket scoring app, like live cricket scoring app, like Crick Heroes and all of that, right? So he wanted me to design a schema for
स्कीमा।
that
ओके।
cricket scoring app. So these were the only technical questions that
क्वेश्चन
he had
लाइक
asked me.
मोस्टली क्वेश्चंस फ्रॉम द डेटाबेस ओनली, राइट? डेटाबेस ओनली दे आस्क।
He had only asked me questions from database, and
Database only.
when he
Okay.
said that this is a backend engineer question
Hmm.
interview, I was expecting that now he's going to ask some DSA questions also, but then he did not
Uh,
do
okay, okay. So I would suggest
anything like
also
that.
like if you are preparing for backend engineers in Swiggy, so you can prepare like database
Yes,
mostly also. But you should prepare the
yes,
programming also. But it depends like what they are asking actually.
it
But
depends.
database is
Yeah,
mandatory,
it,
I think they are asking.
it is. I believe for a backend engineer role, I believe the database should be mandatory,
Okay.
um, because that is something that a backend engineer would usually play around with, right?
Mm,
And
yes,
if you are a
yes.
backend, that is what you would mostly be doing there, taking
Uh,
in data, putting in data, and
uh,
things like that. So these were the technical questions, and then he came to like, why did I choose Flutter for development, because there were
development.
other alternatives as well. There's React Native and there's Kotlin and all of that as well. Why did I only choose Flutter? That was his question. um, After that, I mean, the interview was over, and then
Mm,
I got a rejection mail.
mm,
You are not selected for this position,
mm.
because it was the backend thing, right?
Backend.
And
Okay.
then I had said, I had made a call to the HR saying, this and this has happened. I think this is a miscommunication that's
Mm,
taking place. That was it. And then the HR had said, okay, let's reschedule your interview for analyst. And then
okay.
I had another interview after that.
So आपका जो second round हुआ था right for Swiggy, then again you one more interview for analyst.
Yeah. So again,
Okay.
I went for one more interview of analyst, and then this time I made sure it is for analyst only.
Okay. So
So
what they
this was
ask in
technically my
that
third.
what they ask in
Yeah.
that interview?
So in that interview, I was expecting more of a technical sort of a thing. Now for this sort of an interview, I had, because many of my friends already had appeared for this sort of an interview
Hmm.
earlier when they came to on-campus drive, right?
Yes, yes.
They told me that it is going to be very easy. It is only, and like it was very similar to what they had said. Okay, so I'll
Yes.
tell the flow of my interview itself, and then how is it usually, right? Um, it was completely, I believe, more focused towards how the candidate is communicating and how much efforts the candidate is putting in to get the answer, instead of
Okay.
what sort of a technical knowledge he is having at the
Mostly
moment, right?
communication, like how you present your answers. That is the main
Yeah,
point, right?
exactly.
Yes.
So that was the main focus of the interviewer.
Hmm.
And then I know this because fortunately or unfortunately, the interviewer who was taking my interview is now a part of my team in Swiggy itself.
Okay,
So I
okay.
had asked him I had a little bit
Huh.
chat with him what are you actually looking in for a candidate when you are taking interview.
Yes,
So
yes.
that is what he told me he was mostly looking into how he's able to how a candidate is able to get the answers what he is
Answers.
asked about, the
Yes.
efforts that he's putting in, the way he's
Yes.
coming to
Hmm.
an answer. That was his focus. Now, what he had asked me in the interview was mostly on my resume. It was
Yes.
initially he started with again the same things. Now this time my resume was completely
For analyst,
analytical with
yes.
complete analyst projects. Right,
Yes,
I
yes.
had added two projects of analyst. I had removed the software development part. I did not have any internships at the analytical part, so I kept my internships as it is. But
Yeah.
the projects I changed for
Hmm.
analytical part. Right. Now, it started with resume. Initially, he started asking me about the projects that I had done. The analytical projects that I had. He asked me to explain those projects first,
Yeah.
and then he asked me, what better could you have done in that project?
Hmm.
Something
Hmm.
that you can still improve. And then he asked me to rate that project as well. Like, if someone else had made this project, what do you think that could have been done better in this
Better.
project or
Yes,
something like
yes.
that,
So
right?
like
So
situation based and like behavioral type questions, logical questions they have
yeah,
asked.
yeah, yeah. And then that
Hmm.
interview was that interview had a lot of behavioral questions and
uh,
situation based questions,
yes.
because in my resume I had mentioned that I have had very good experience with event management and all of that, because I was very highly active in extracurricular activities in college, and I
Hmm.
had mentioned that clearly in my resume, right? So he was grinding me so much on that part itself. Okay, so if you were to lead a team of these many people, and if there exists a conflict, how are you going to resolve this sort of a conflict and all that? And
Hmm.
then if you were given a project,
Hmm.
and if there's a very short deadline, how would you come about meeting that deadline?
Yes, yes. Like
So he
management
had
type
a,
they have asked. Like
yeah,
what
exactly.
leadership
So
quality,
he had
team
a,
management quality you should have that one. Okay.
exactly, exactly like that. So he had asked me like around 7 to 8 questions to that sort of a kind,
Hmm.
at least, right? And then um, he came back to 2 or 3 technical questions. There were no SQL questions that were involved.
Hmm.
I was surprised with this, but because I was expecting at least one SQL
Ah,
questions
yes, yes. For
question,
analyst,
right?
I think
But,
like interviewer are asking the actually skill questions.
yes.
Yeah.
So I did not have any SQL question from his end. Although he asked me, he started with technical questions in this way. He asked me the very same question that was asked in backend.
Hmm.
What is the difference between SQL and MongoDB,
MongoDB.
right?
Okay.
And he asked me as in, why would an analyst prefer SQL over MongoDB,
MongoDB.
right?
Okay.
So it is because of the relational thing.
Hmm.
SQL perceives a relational relation between all of it, tables and all
Hmm.
of that,
Yes,
right?
yes.
So it's because of that. उसके बाद he asked me, these questions were asked to other candidates as well. Whatever now he is going to ask me, right?
Hmm.
He asked me to assess a food blogger. How he asked me, how would you assess different food bloggers on the basis of whatever like you have. So what sort of analytics would you use to
Hmm.
assess them, like
Yes, yes.
basically to judge them, right?
Yes, yes.
So I told them if they are on YouTube, so
Hmm.
you can maybe take count of their subscribers, the likes on their
Hmm.
videos, or the comments or something like that, right? um, across all the food bloggers, that's something that you can do,
Ah,
right?
yes,
If they are
yes.
on some other platform, you can maybe use other matrices that are being used in those platforms as well, right? uh, on the very same thing, he had asked me, ki, if you were to open a restaurant, what sort of parameters would you take into consideration for building your for setting up the price of your menu,
Hmm. Yes.
right?
Hmm.
So this was the question that was thrown at me again. I think that was it for the technical part. And after this, he again came back to me with the behavioral and situation based questions.
Like and like
That
two to
interview
three
was,
questions they have asked like related to analytics, right? Like what
yeah,
filtration analytics you should use and what
yeah,
that two questions you mentioned like restaurant and that food blogger. So that is the analytical thing that an analyst
yeah,
should have. And other than that, all behavioral and situational based question and one normal
yeah.
question that is SQL and MongoDB difference only. Okay.
SQL Maori.
So that was like full analyst, right? Full interview. Basically, it was like non-technical type, but you should be very
Yeah.
communicative in this and logical also
Yeah,
because if
I would I would only suggest you to be, very communicative, because
hmm,
he was checking a lot on my communication skills
communication,
and how would I handle different kinds of situations. Because
yes, yes.
at some point I was thinking, okay, now maybe this is the end of the situation based
Hmm,
questions and all that, but he did not stop at any point.
hmm,
I was expecting to get, I was expecting to get more of the analytical questions, more of
hmm,
the technical questions, but I was not thrown any technical questions apart from these 2 or 3 questions, right?
yes,
And it
yes.
was not only the case with me.
For
All
all
the,
these
all
students,
my
yeah.
and all the other students as well, they only had these very few. For some students, they also had just estimates,
Hmm,
those kind of a question. If these are the number of trees, how would you estimate the number of trees,
hmm.
number of leaves on a tree, something like that. This is something, one more thing that a student can expect, but nothing more than that. No, not
Mostly
even like
analytical
SQL.
based questions or situation
Yeah,
based question. Basically, because this
it
is
was,
what they are thinking like situation, the analytical role. So you should be very communicative also. And you have already mentioned like some management projects, analytical projects, and that's why they have asked like how you manage the team. If you are going with the team
yeah,
management also, then how you
yeah.
manage the team and how you filter data something. So that is the object. But this
They
is
were
very
looking more into the
strange.
critical thinking. True.
but this is very interesting what happened with you. Like you gave two interview, that is backend engineer also and analyst engineer also. So basically, I think in this video, the students got two interview experience. If you are going for
Two
backend
interviews.
engineer also, then you can uh, use this one, or if you going for analyst also. So I think for analyst, I
Yeah,
think you should not that much prepare that technical. You should focus on the communication and your analytical skills
yes,
and logical
exactly.
skills. And it's a mostly situation based. What they are think like asking, you should be very like prepare that time only. You
You
should
should be very
think, yeah.
confident with the situation-based
Yes,
answers
yes,
that you are giving in,
yes,
right?
yes.
Because he was very much focused towards the, especially towards the situation-based questions.
Situation based
Because
question.
at least 7 to 8 questions were
Yeah.
thrown only for situation-based. And he was, whatever answer was giving him,
Hmm.
he was coming up with a new
New
crossover of
questions.
that
Yes,
question,
yes. Because
right?
situation based
So
question
that is
is
something
like
that he was doing a lot.
people cannot prepare that one, right? Students cannot prepare
Yeah,
that one. It is normally
cannot
like
prepare that.
what you are thinking, what's in
That
your
is from
mind,
your,
right? Yes. So
yeah.
that's why they are asking like that
So
questions.
for those sort of questions, what I would suggest is,
Hmm.
instead, what you can do is, you can maybe read a lot of interview experiences, or maybe
Ah,
you can watch a
yes.
lot of such interview experiences that we are doing right now,
Yeah.
or maybe you can talk to people who have taken either a lot of interviews, or who have
Yes.
been appearing for a lot of interviews.
Interview. Yeah.
Because there was a time when I had given almost, 7 to 8 interviews by then, when I was appearing for Swiggy's interview. And
Hmm.
one thing that was good with me, I had a lot of experience with giving interviews, because I had been
Yes.
doing a lot of interviews since
Yeah.
first year. So uh, I would suggest ki be confident when you are answering any situation based or behavioral questions,
Hmm.
because that is what matters. Because the technical questions, you know the technical part already, so there's
Yes.
nothing
Yes.
much you can do in them,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Either you know the answer or you do not know the answer. That's what it is, right? But in behavioral question, even if you do not know the answer, you can make them up at the point.
Yeah.
For suppose if some question is thrown at you, what would you do in such
Yes.
situation?
Yes.
That's not like, not very obviously you would know the answer, right? There are chances that you would not know कि मैं क्या करूँगा. But then
Yeah.
you need to have enough confidence. Even if you have made that answer right at the moment, just say it as it is, as if you have done it, or just say it with full
यस यस
confidence, I would say.
कॉन्फिडेंस लाइक जैसे कि उन्होंने पूछा कि एसक्यूएल एंड मोंगोडीबी में क्या डिफरेंस है. सो आई थिंक अगर आप इजीली बता दोगे कि हाँ ये है डिफरेंस है, उसके बाद आप उसको रिलेट करके नहीं बताओगे कि क्यों डिफरेंस है और
Exactly.
क्या यूज है, तो वो सबसे ज्यादा मैटर करता है. कि आप आंसर तो हर कोई कर पाता है, राइट? आंसर डिफरेंस
Answer
हर
हर
किसी
कोई
को
कर
पता
पाता है,
होता
but
है,
the
बट
way
आप
you answer
किस
it.
या किस तरीके से उसको करते हो, या उसके पीछे क्या लॉजिक है, और आपको उसका रियल पता है कि हाँ वो डिफरेंस क्यों है, और हमारे जॉब रोल में वो क्यों लाइक यूजफुल होने वाला है. दैट इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट.
that
So
is that is where
yes.
you would make a difference. And मतलब बहुत सारे लोगों ने, even many people had told me this, कि make use of star approach, right, when
Yes,
you are
yes.
answering something, especially in situation based and behavioral questions.
Hmm.
So most of the students here might be already knowing about star approach, but if you do not just go and have a read, have a read what is star approach, how would you describe a situation,
Hmm.
and then action, and then all of that.
Yes, yes.
So that would help a lot, because that is something, that is a very good way of answering a situation based question, because in that you are
Hmm.
able to describe the situation in a very good manner, and then you are able to also tell the solution to it, right? So that is something that helped me a lot, because a lot of situation based questions were asked throughout all the 7 8 interviews that I had given.
Hmm.
And this star methodology is what I had used in all of them, and that helped me a lot with
Yes.
all of these questions.
So I would also suggest, I think, if you are going for interview, then you also use the star problem, like like
Yeah,
methodology. If you don't know, you can just Google it, and you can know about it. That one. Like
yeah, and it's a pretty easy
yes.
method.
So it is all about your experience. Like let me like clarify कि आपका क्या क्या rounds थे. Like for if you are going for analyst interview, so first round was online assessment that consists
Yeah,
like only general aptitude, that is
general.
maths, logical reasoning, and English. After that, second round was your new story, that was like
Yeah,
backend engineer. But the second round was normally if you are going for analyst, then second will be your technical round, that is normally resume based and your analytical
yeah,
thinking skills. Okay.
analytical thing.
After that, any round they have conducted, or directly after that, your selection or a no
No, no,
achata?
I directly had received
Okay.
the mail for
So
selection.
two round,
I
two
was not.
basically round, that is online assessment, and one interview, that is one-to-one discussion based on your resume and technical skills or analytical skills. Okay. If you are going for backend engineer, so prepare the backend things. Or first, basically, if you are going for backend engineer, so I think there will be coding assessment also. If you are because
Yeah,
first round you applied for
we did not
analyst,
appear
yes,
for
yes.
online assessment. So
But for interview perspective, you can prepare the SQL or technical skills that he mentioned. Or after that, I think there will be more rounds also. But for analyst round, only two rounds. That is technical interview and that online assessment.
online
So
assessment. Yeah,
thank you, Sajal, and for sharing your experience. Was great experience with you, and it is very new story also. People can face sometimes on campus, but off campus it's very normal. And they are not facing like that, but on campus sometimes some issues because so many
yeah.
students are applying at the same time different companies now. So it was great experience, and